I'm actually too little for this table. So I'm going to move it or you won't be able to see me. If you all could do me two favors. The first, I need you to say this. Denica. Denica. The first favor is I need you to remember how to pronounce my name. I'm about to be 40. I'm not living the rest of my life answering to Denica, Denacia, Denise, Denica. And the second favor is when you introduce yourself to me, I need you to make sure I get your name right, because I'm not living the rest of my life mispronouncing other people's names. It is very important. Now, it's not your fault. It's my parents made that decision. They were playing Scrabble, and they came up with Denica. But I have a few minutes to share with you this one thing, and that is this. Whatever it is that you go through in life, you will either go through it with God or without God. You can't choose what you go through. You can only choose how you go through it, with God or without God. Now, you know how you get saved when you're little, but then when you're an adult, it's like, oh, I'm really saved now. And that was my experience. I got to college like, oh, I'm really saved now. And I started doing a lot of the right things. And I know I'm not the only one in here who knew how to do the right things. I started going to Bible study, and I started evangelizing, and I learned apologetics. And I was fasting, and I was praying, and I was worshiping, and I was doing all of the right things. And I decided to go on this dating fast. And I said, I will not kiss the next person that I'm with until the day we get married. And even though my friends ridiculed me, somehow there was some guy who had made the same commitment to himself. I am not going to kiss anybody until I get married. So my husband and I, and he had been doing all of the right things that I was doing. He was fasting and praying and worshiping and reading the Bible. And we got married. And guys, we were literally the poster children for sexual purity. We got married the day we graduated from Kent State University, and we shared our first kiss when we were pronounced husband and wife. Aww. And life was going pretty much as we expected it. It matched up with almost every sermon that I had heard up to that point. You do good things, and good things are going to happen to you. And when something bad happened, like we could pretty much point to something that we did to kind of bring that our way. Like, oh, okay, well, maybe if I wasn't acting like this, and this wouldn't have happened. So everything is going good, and we're doing good things. And we decided to have children. And in 2004, boy, did we reap an awesome harvest. We started having children, and our firstborn, now before I bring her out here, Noelle said we could use pictures, but this was 2004. I don't have anything digital. So I thought I would do the next best thing and bring her out. So in 2004, we started having children, and this was the most beautiful child I had ever seen. I couldn't believe, and you probably can't, I couldn't believe that she came from me. She was so beautiful, and quite frankly, other people couldn't believe that this was my child either. And I took her to the doctor for her checkup, and he said, Mom, she's perfect. And I was like, in my head, of course she is, because we do everything good. So that's our first child. And I don't have any, again, I'm digitally impaired. In 2007, we decided to have another child, and this child was also just as beautiful, just as amazing, except I had this confidence now that I didn't have the first time around. And I knew that I could be her mom. And I took her to the doctor. And the doctor said, "Mom, I'm worried. She's hypotonic, which means she has low muscle tone." He said she's really floppy like a rag doll. And I couldn't process what was happening. A few months later, we found ourselves in an emergency room because I thought I was going to get her admitted for failure to thrive. She had lost 2 pounds in 1 week. And I already knew, I'm trying to breastfeed. My breast milk is not going to be enough. And you know how as moms, we feel so insufficient, so inefficient when we can't give breast is best to our baby. So I'm preparing myself for the heartbreak that I know is coming. And this time a neurologist came in. And this doctor looked at me and he said, "Mom, I'm sorry." And I said what no person who is full of faith would ever say. I said, "It's fatal, isn't it?" And he said, "Yes. She's probably not going to make it to her first birthday." And at this time, she was just a few months shy of being 6 months. And I'm trying to wrestle with this, to make sense of this. God, what in the world happened to being fearfully and wonderfully made? What happened to what the Bible said? What happened to, "I knew you in the secret place"? What happened to being formed in my mother's womb? Where is that? Where are you now? How is this right? What good person has bad things happen to them? I did everything right. I didn't kiss my husband until the day we got married, and now a doctor was telling me my baby was going to die. And we had to wait to get the diagnosis, the official diagnosis. And while we were waiting, the saints did what the saints do. Not all of them. We had an awesome support system. But every once in a while, you will have somebody that was coming to rebuke it, to rebuke you for your lack of faith. "Oh, if you just pray more. Oh, if you just read more. Oh, if you just fast more." But I looked up this disease online, and it described my child to a T. And I went to the hospital room, and I told my husband, "She has this disease. And we're either going to get through this with God or without God." And the official diagnosis came in. Our child was diagnosed with something called spinal muscular atrophy type 1, formerly known as Wernicke-Hoffman disease. Either way, it's just a fancy way of saying hell on earth. Our child never sat up, never rolled over. She never crawled. She never pulled herself up. She never walked. She lost the ability to breathe on her own. She never, like December said earlier, I know that feeling. She never said, "Mama." She never said, "I love you." And this wasn't going to be prayed away. It wasn't going to be fasted away. It wasn't going to be do all of the good things away. It was here to stay. And if you don't know what this is, consider yourself blessed. Because this is our daughter. This is the urn that carries her ashes. Everybody has their own journey. And for some people, the belief in a benevolent God is the first thing that has to go when your situation is so painful that it doesn't match this. I do good things, and good things are supposed to happen to me. And I know that losing a child is not the only pain that's in the room. First of all, I know I'm not the only mother that has lost a child. But second of all, I know that some of you are carrying pains that are just as great. But remember, you either go through this with God or without God. It doesn't matter what you choose, but either way, you are going through it. And it changes the way you even read the Bible, where before I used to read like, oh, look what God did for Israel. Oh, he killed everybody for Israel. Now now something bad has happened. Oh my gosh, God smote everybody. He had them kill a whole town. I didn't see it this way before. But something else that I didn't see before was from Genesis to Revelation, there is nobody who didn't struggle. Where did we come up with the idea that bad things are not supposed to happen to good people? From in the beginning all the way to amen. Not one person made it through that book unscathed. But for some reason, I was expecting my life to be different. I read through the Bible and I saw in the book of Psalms that David said of the Lord, you collect my tears in a bottle. And I imagined that God was collecting my tears in his bottle. And I wondered if he was collecting my temper tantrums that I had when nobody else was around. And I wondered if he counted my heartaches. I read the book of Galatians. Galatians chapter 4, you know how sometimes you read the Bible and the really meaty scriptures stick out to you, but then there's this background information that just kind of fades away. And I'm sitting in front of her crib and I'm reading Galatians chapter 4, verse 13, and randomly it says, you know that it was because of an illness that I first came to you. Now, if you know anything about the book of Galatians, it was written by Paul. And if you know anything about Paul, he wrote most of the New Testament. And he says to this church, you know it was because of an illness. Paul was sick that I first preached the gospel to you. And then verse 14 says, and even though my illness was a trial to you. What? Whatever Paul had was so severe that it wasn't just a trial to him, it was a trial to the people around him. Even though my illness was a trial to you, you cared for me. You treated me as if I were an angel of God, as if I were Christ Jesus himself. And all I could do was look at that and weep, because I felt like that was in the Bible just for me, because our daughter, her illness was a trial to us. But to us, she was an angel of God. To us, she was Jesus. And speaking of Jesus, you know, before I suffered, I thought, well, Jesus didn't really suffer like that. That's just extra. Like, I was just being extra so that we would think that he was more human. I mean, he was God. He didn't really suffer. But when I was suffering, I saw the suffering of Jesus. And for some reason, I thought because I'm living for him, that I'm not going to suffer anything ever. But that's not how this works. And I said again, whatever it is that you have to go through with God or without God, those are your only options. My husband and I decided to have another baby. And what our daughter died from was a genetic condition. So we were taking a huge risk. And my husband said, we know what it's like to have a healthy baby, and we know what it's like to have a sick baby. We know what it's like to have a baby who lives and to have a baby who dies. We know that we have each other, that we have our friends and family, and that we have the Lord. Will you have another baby with me? And can I tell you, if whoever I encountered on the street, hey, can you pray for me? I just found out I'm pregnant. Can you pray for me? I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I needed whosoever will pray to pray. And we had him tested for that genetic condition after he was born. And I remember the day they called me on the phone and they said, Mrs. Bishop, we don't usually do this, but we know how important this is for you and your family. And we just wanted to let you know, I'm going to ruin the surprise. Just hold off. Don't celebrate yet. We wanted to let you know that your son doesn't even carry the gene, which means that he can't pass it on to his children. And yes, We celebrated. However, we had to fight well, of course, because you deserved it. Because you took such good care of Morgan that you deserve, really, if I deserve a healthy baby boy, then I deserved the sick baby girl. How can I say, God, thank you for this healthy child? Oh, I feel good about God today. Oh, God is real today. Look how God helped the children of Israel today because I have a healthy baby. Oh, God is awful. Maybe God doesn't exist. Look how he smote the whole world. Look how he brought the flood. Tomorrow, when I have a sick baby, trial, tribulation is going to come. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how tall or how short you are. It doesn't matter how wide or how thin you are. It doesn't care about where you live. It don't care what your plans are. It doesn't care what your favorite food is, what your favorite color. It doesn't care if you are black, white, brown, blue, purple. It doesn't care anything about you. If suffering is coming to you, it is suffering. That is the lesson that I had to learn through this. And let me tell you what's even worse about it. It doesn't even matter that I already suffered something that nobody else wanted to suffer. Because if it's my turn again, then it is my turn. I can't choose that, but I either go through with God or without God. But they're still going to be murdering. Babies are still going to be starving. Babies are still going to be born with genetic conditions. There is still going to be war. There is still going to be anger and strife and sickness and disease. It don't matter because you chose to not believe in God because something bad happened to you. So what? Who cares? Life is still going on. Children are still starving. Guess what? Oh, I'm this faith now because children are starving. And what type of God would do that? And what difference does it make? Nothing. What difference does it make that I still have my faith in God? Nothing. They're still starving. That's not how this works. We can't earn it. There are some things that by God's grace, we can fast, pray, obey away. But there is a lot of stuff. Ladies, life is life. And it works how it works. But you are either going to go through it with God or without God. That is the only thing that I know to tell you from my story. The only thing I know to leave you with, because the only thing that's different is what the details are. You have your different details. But the outcome is the same, with God or without God. Period. And I had to take inventory of my own heart because I thought it was unfair at one point. Why would God give me this baby when I've been so good? And I remember trying to take inventory. Okay, let me line up my husband's family, his family tree, my family tree. All right, so this person over here was married, and then they had a baby with somebody else. And then over here on my tree, now all the babies were born out of wedlock. That's why we had a sick baby, because we're suffering a generational curse. And then I thought, well, if that's not right, I'm looking at other women who don't even want to have kids. They got 4.5 baby daddies and 13 kids and don't feed them, don't clothe them, and their kids are so strong and healthy. And I thought I deserved what they had and they deserved what I had. That women who don't want kids should be the one to have the sick babies. But it was my sick baby that helped me to realize how sick my thinking was. It's easy to question God. God, why would you give me a sick baby than it is to be honest and say something like, God, I don't want a sick baby. I don't want a baby in a wheelchair stroller. I don't want a baby with a feeding tube. I don't want a baby who can't crawl and talk and walk. The problem, the broken one, is me, not God. My broken baby, showed me my broken thinking. Sometimes it is our broken situations that shows us our own brokenness. But my prayer for each and every one of you is that no matter what ripple, no matter what tsunami, no matter what earthquake, no matter what trial comes your way, that you will remember this: with God or without God, but it's not going to take your situation away. You get to choose. Do I suffer with God or do I suffer alone?